What's going on, everybody? This is your light skinned one in Tuskegee 87, aka Michael Joe Daddy, back here again with part 4 in this series of Envision a Better Man 2020. In part 1, we talked about how women perceive men and where this perception came from and why men do the things that they do leading up to this perception. In part 2, we talked about what is a man and broke down some of the social biases that people have about what a man should be or their own ideas of how a man should act, be, or do. We then defined that man and defined that he is what he does and how his character is. From there, we took the character of that man and put him in the role of a husband. And we talked about how a good man of character is supposed to treat his wife, how he's supposed to love his wife, how he is supposed to sacrifice for her, how he is supposed to honor her. We then took the role of that husband even further, and now we bring him into the role of a father as we talk about this in part 4. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The number one role for a father is to be a teacher. A father is instructed to train up a child in the way that they should go, that when they become older, they will not depart far from it. What does this mean? This means that as they grow up, we need to teach them how to navigate the world. We need to teach them how to live a righteous life. We need to teach them how to obey the laws and guidance and understandings that come from God, that they may have an extended life, that you as a father may have an extended life. This is very vital because if we teach them the right way, then they should go the right way. That when they encounter hardship, that they are not discouraged, that they know how to navigate around it, that they know how to persevere through it, that they're not beaten down by the situations or things that they encounter. But again, we must also train them up in said discipline and instruction from the Lord. Now, why do we need to do this instruction from the Lord? Well, again, it's as I mentioned before, that they may prosper. But also, again, everything that God has put forth for us to do is only meant for our benefit. It is meant to propel us forward. It is meant to better us. It is meant to give us an abundant life. So again, some of those things that God tells us not to do may be something that we want to do. It may be a temptation, but we know that if we resist that temptation, on the other side is a reward more greater than if we were to accept that temptation. For then we would only get a temporal satisfaction, but after that satisfaction we would see a whole bunch of misery and despair, because the blessing of the Lord maketh rich and add no sorrow unto it. So again, how do we make sure that we keep our children on this right path and on the guidance and instruction that we're trying to give them? Well, we must chasten them. As fathers, we must discipline our children, but we must be careful not to exacerbate them or not to anger them unless they lose courage and unless they lose hope. But again, we must bring them up in the teachings and the ways of the Lord so that again, they may be successful in life. You may have heard the phrase, "He who spares the rod spoils his son," or spoils the child. However, the phrase of scripture actually goes, "He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently." Now, what does that mean, the disciplining diligently? Does that mean that we kick them down flights of stuff when we upset with them? Does that mean that we beat them, or that we berate them, or that we leave them outside in the cold to teach them a lesson, or that we don't feed them? No, it means that we hold them accountable to the standards that we have put forth in front of them. If we have told them to do something, yet they did not do it, we must sit down with them and help them understand, even as God does, and help them know and figure out what they have done, show them why it was wrong, and then show them the right way. And if they continue down that same path, we must increase our method of discipline. Sometimes they may require that we take some things away from them. Sometimes they may require that we spank them. But discipline isn't always physical in nature. Sometimes you have to get creative. What works for one child doesn't always work for the other child. So that's where you as a father have to know and understand and use wisdom to teach your children and bring them up in the way that they should go. But as we're bringing them up and as we're chastening them, we also need to encourage them. We need to encourage them when they've fallen off of a bike, even as God encourages us when we're suffering through life. We need to encourage them when they're struggling with school, even as God encourages us, asking us to ask Him of wisdom that He may give it to us willingly and freely without asking questions. We must encourage them when they're alone or when they're feeling anxious, just as God does for us, where He says, cast all our cares onto Him, for He cares, that we should not be anxious or wanting for anything, but with prayer and supplication make our requests known unto Him. Again, as fathers, we must take care of our child's social, mental, physical, and most importantly, spiritual needs. And again, that is the biggest thing, but that is our role as fathers. Because if we don't do our role well, and if we don't take our role seriously, then we have children who grow up feeling not whole, feeling empty. Children who rebel and don't know why. Children who feel oppressed or downtrodden and don't understand why. Because we haven't taught them how to be successful. We haven't trained them up in the way that they should go, so that their days may be numbered. So again, the role of a father is important. Now, I've made this correlation by a revelation that I've received, and it is a revelation between how we are to respond as fathers in the spiritual role, just as how God responds in the natural world, and how our connection is with our children, and how that differs from others. So the correlation is that mothers have a physical and emotional and soul tie with their children, because their children is where their physical form and body comes from, and their soul is deposited within that physical form that is within their mother, and their soul of the mother that is also within their mother now has a connection with the soul of their child. So there is a very deep connection with the mother and the child in that manner. However, a father has a more spiritual connection with their child, because they are the ones who give life unto that child. They are the ones who deposit the seed into the egg, which is the shell in the mother, to bring forth that life. The mother holds eggs, which is the shell of this physical being that you see when you look in the mirror. But the spirit that is within this shell is the seed that comes from the Father that inhabits that shell or the egg. In the spiritual realm, it's similar in that same sense. Mother Earth, as some people call it, is where our physical forms were originally made from, which is why we have such a connection with being outside, not wanting to be cooped up, not wanting to be isolated, but wanting to be in fresh air, wanting to see the sun, wanting to see the green grass and all the different things that nature provides for us, because our souls and because our bodies are tied to this earth. However, God is the one who breathed the breath of life within to this body, thereby giving us a life and thereby giving us a spirit. Because again, God was the one who formed our bodies from the material of the earth, just as the body of our children are formed from the material within our mother. So that's my spiritual correlation, and I get that from what God has said, that on earth as it is in heaven should be the order of things. So this is where that revelation kind of lines up with, and I know some may not agree with that, but again, this is just a revelation that was brought unto me and that I wanted to share unto you all. So again, I hope that this has been beneficial to fathers. I hope the information that I provided to you all makes sense. And even if it doesn't, I ask that you leave a comment, that you ask some of the questions, that you maybe even challenge some of the things, where I got some of the references from, that you look the references up yourself, that you may become more knowledgeable and enlightened in that respect. But at the end of the day, I hope that this was beneficial to you, and I hope that all you fathers out there take this role of becoming a father very seriously, because you are the ones who train and teach the future of our generation. So again, throughout this series, again, I hope that that was also beneficial as well. How we talked about what causes some of us to do the things that we do, and maybe some ways on how to fix that or overcome that, and building up our character to be a good man, and becoming a good man, also taking those characters into being a good husband, and from those characteristics of being a husband, being a good father as well, and bringing everything full circle to turn everything back around for the next generation. So again, I thank you all for your time, and I thank you all for being with me through this journey and series. I hope that you all have learned and been enlightened just as much as I have. So I want you all to check out some of the other videos on the channel, see what else is going on. If you have comments or suggestions about other content that you want to see on this channel, please drop a comment, drop a like, subscribe, check out some of the other videos. And again, this is Tuskegee 87, aka Marco Joe Daddy, reminding you all to straighten up and fly right, and that also you have the power to make it do what it do. So let's get it done. All right, I'm out. Bye.